If you're interested in the story of Hmserebus and Erebus, let's get into it, because I'm going to talk about it because I find it very interesting. Let's go. So the story of Hmserebus and Erebus is one of tragedy, ultimately tragedy, but one of adventure and exploration. These two, sorry if you see us looking down here, it's because my mirror is down here, so I can actually see what I'm doing with my face. These two ships were under the command of Sir John Franklin, and they set out on a mission to navigate the Northwest Pacific, a fabled sea route through the Antarctic, linking Antarctic and Pacific Oceans together. However, their fate would become one of the greatest mysteries in marine history. In May 1870, just pulling numbers out my arse, it's not May 1870, it's May 1845. Thank you. Terror and Erebus, which were sturdy vessels, were reinforced for Antarctic exploration. They departed from England with a crew of 134 men, equipped with provisions for several years. Because obviously in them days, you're sailing and it's not like you can just get Deliveroo to drop off some medicine and rich teas and that when you're in the middle of the ocean, like, you know. These features on the ship were intended to provide greater movement and power through the ice-infested waters of the Arctic. Their mission was ambitious and perilous, as they ventured into uncharted waters where ice, harsh weather, and limited resources pose significant challenges. The primary goal of taking this route was to navigate the Northwest Passage, which is a sea route through the Arctic, linking Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The Northwest Passage was a coveted route sought by explorers and navigators for centuries, as it was promised a shorter and more direct passage from Europe to Asia. The expedition also intended to conduct scientific research, including studies of magnetism, meteorology, say that 10 times fast, meteorology, and other natural phenomena encountered during the journey. Oh, I just hit that again. That's so funny, that keeps happening. The initial progress seemed promising as the ships, sorry I'm just mixing me thingy, as the ships made their way through the Canadian Arctic, I don't know how you pronounce it, archipelago, through the Canadian archipelago. I've probably mispronounced that. Please correct us in the comments. Or keep it to yourself. Alright. I'm just trying. I'm trying my best. However, by September 1846, Erebus and Terror became trapped near King William Island, effectively marooning the crew. Despite the predicament, Franklin and his crew remained optimistic, believing they could wait out the winter and resume their journey in the spring. Explorers had learned from earlier expeditions that it was important to keep the crew busy and active during difficult winters. So the crew in them days would have put on shows and carried out an exploration of the area, because obviously they're marooned, so they can't really go anywhere, by foot. And they would have had lessons in reading and writing, so they would have kept themselves busy. Oh god, but just that thought of being stuck in the ice and no one knowing where you are. No thank you. And just to give you an idea of the weather in the Arctic, the conditions they were facing, especially at that time they went, would have been a high of minus 27 degrees and lows were minus 39, so... Oh yeah, and they also had an average 4 hours. And they also had an average of 4 hours daylight every day, so... I can imagine that taking a hideous effect on optimism and health and trying to stay positive. Tragically, spring brought no relief in terms of unmarooning themselves. As the months turned into years, the situation grew dire. The crews remained trapped on the ships for over a year before ultimately abandoning them in April of 1846. The crew remained trapped on the ship. This means they were stranded for approximately 1 year and 7 months before the decision was made to abandon the ship. An attempt to track overland and search for help was made. Whilst aboard the ship, the harsh Arctic conditions took their toll on the crew, leading to scurvy, exposure and starvation, claiming the lives of many. Now, I've seen different articles saying different things about who led the initial exploration, the initial search for help, because some of the crew remained on board and some gathered together to search the land, see if they could get any help. Some reports say it was Franklin himself, the captain, and others say by this time Franklin had perished, and that it was his second in command, Francis, who led the party. So I couldn't quite get an exact answer because they were saying different things, but either or, one of them led a party of men overland to try and get a search for help. They trekked southward, hoping to reach Hudson's Bay Outpost. Hudson's Bay Company Outpost operated from 1870 to 1987, operating hundreds of trading posts in various parts of Canada and the northwestern US. During the fur trade, indigenous trappers visited trading posts to exchange fur for valued goods produced by Europeans, including metal objects, weapons and glass beads. So there was these, at the time they would have been working these Hudson Bay Company huts, and they were hoping to go there to either find rations or a radio for help, that sort of thing. I think they're still, the remains are still there these days, but they're dilapidated, and I think that they're not, well, obviously they're not in use because I've just said they went out of date in the 80s, so listen to yourself. However, unfortunately, none of these men survived the journey, you know, the ones that went to get help. So it was just left to the crew members on board to wait things out, I suppose. It wasn't until between 2014 and 16, 169 years after the initial expedition, that Canadian researchers finally discovered the wreckage. These discoveries shed new light on the final moments of the expedition, revealing evidence of abandoned campsites and shedding light on how the lives of the crew members may have perished. Some of the possible ways the crew members may have died on board include, well, I'll go into a detailed list. Some examples include exposure to harsh Arctic conditions. The extreme cold temperatures and harsh weather conditions on the Arctic took a toll on the crew's health. Exposure to the cold led to hypothermia and frostbite, contributing to the deterioration of their physical well-being. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's Christ almighty. Put down the blush. Scurvy. I think we've all heard of scurvy before, but scurvy is a disease caused by a deficiency of vitamin C. It was a significant threat to the crew's health, and the lack of fresh fruits and vegetables in their diet, combined with the prolonged duration of the expedition, the development of scurvy among many members of the crew. This disease weakened their immune system and made them more susceptible to illnesses. Starvation. As they became stranded in the ice, food supplies dwindled, and the crew struggled to find enough nourishment to sustain themselves. One of the other reasons, which you might find strange, I found strange when I was researching this, was lead poisoning. The expedition's canned food supplies were sealed with lead solder, which leached into food and water over time. Prolonged exposure to lead led to poisoning among the crew, causing various health problems and contributing to their overall decline. I suppose that's like maybe microplastics now. Because obviously you read things now of how microplastics are leaching into our food and stuff, but that's a long-term problem. Lead poisoning. I don't know if that's short-term, but it sounds like it if they might have died from it. The other reason was just general, I say just, but I don't mean just, was general illness and disease. Respiratory infections, gastrointestinal illnesses, and other contagious diseases would have spread easily on a cramped and unsanitary ship. Also, the mental and physical strain of the situation, the prolonged isolation, uncertainty and stress of being stranded in the Arctic took its toll on the members. Depression, anxiety and despair likely exacerbated their physical ailments and contributed to the eventual demise. The disappearance of Franklin's expedition captured the public's imagination and spurred numerous rescue missions and search efforts. It also inspired works of literature and art and poetry, including paintings by William Bradford and J.M.W. Turner. The Franklin expedition crewmen were last seen by the people who lived in the area. Inuit people had adapted to the Arctic's harsh climate and had the skill and knowledge to thrive. They saw European explorers and were curious about their inadequate clothing and methods of surviving. The oral testimonies of the Inuit people helped European explorers over centuries and were crucial in the search for the Franklin expedition. The relationship between the crew of HMS Erebus and Terror and their families played a significant role in the expedition's narrative. During the expedition, crew members maintained correspondence with their families through letters, providing updates on the progress and their well-being. However, as the expedition became stranded in the Arctic and communication became increasingly difficult because letters grew fewer and far between, families back home anxiously awaited news from their loved ones, hoping for a safe return. In addition to letters, diary entries and personal journals were kept by the crew members, providing insights to their experiences, but also the last moments. These documents offer glimpses into the daily struggles and triumphs and hardships faced by the crew as they battled the elements and sought to survive the harsh Arctic environment. This document that I've put on screen is essentially a typical pre-printed Admiralty form embellished with 2 handwritten updates. The initial note, penned in May 1847, reassured the authorities that Sir John Franklin remained in charge of the expedition and all was proceeding smoothly. However, the second message, appended in April 1848, conveyed a starkly contrasting narrative. It reported the tragic demise of 24 individuals. More distressingly, it revealed that HMS Erebus and Terror had been abandoned following a 19-month entrapment in sea ice. 19 months! I can't even survive a 5-hour flight. I had hoped to find examples of diary entries, like they said they'd found, but I couldn't find anything. I don't know if they're keeping it under lock and key for a while still, or I don't know, I just couldn't find anything, which is a shame because I think it's always so interesting to find the diary entries of people who have gone through things like this. For example, I've read The Worst Journey in the World and Shackleton's Heroes, and they both provide diary entries of everything that happened and what they're going through, and it's just mad to read first hand accounts of these things that have happened. And I would have loved to have read, well, loved sounds a bit, but I couldn't find anything unless, I mean, I did look across several websites, several articles, and a few did say that they found diary entries, but I just couldn't find any. And like when I would click on them, they would just have like scripture from something else. For example, like the image I provided before of like that letter, which is as in detail as I could get. But feel free to have a look for yourselves, because maybe I'm just a rubbish investigator. The discovery of Erebus and Terra's wrecks in the 21st century also yielded new insights from artifacts and personal belongings found on board. These items included clothing, navigational instruments, providing tangible connections to the lives and experiences of the crew members. Now, there were some conspiracies I researched about this expedition, as most disasters do, and I managed to find a couple of theories. I'm not saying I personally believe in them. I'll give my opinion at the end. But anyway, to go through them, because I do love a good conspiracy. Number 1, sabotage and mutiny. One theory suggests that the expedition fell victim to sabotage or mutiny among the crew members. This theory posts that the internal strife or conflicts within the crew led to intentional actions that ultimately led to the demise of the expedition, aka they got in a little row, a little tiz, a little fisticuffs, and that led to them, I don't know, taking their eye off the wheel and getting stuck. Another theory about it, not necessarily to how it happened, but about the incident itself, is cannibalism. There have been suggestions that the crew resorted to cannibalism in a desperate bid for survival after becoming stranded. While there is little concrete evidence to support this theory, the harsh conditions and dwindling resources faced by the crew have led some to speculate about extreme measures taken to stave off starvation. Another theory is foreign interference, which proposes that foreign powers such as Russia or the United States may have played a role in the disappearance of Erebus and Terror. Some believe that these powers may have sought to prevent the expedition from successfully navigating the Northwest Passage for strategic or political purposes. Perhaps they wanted to do it first, or there's something that we don't know about. Another theory is Inuit involvement. There have been suggestions that the indigenous Inuit people of the Arctic may have played a role in the disappearance of the expedition, while there is absolutely no concrete evidence to support this theory. It has been fueled by a misunderstanding and misconceptions about the Inuit culture and interactions with European explorers. There was also a supernatural theory, because it's always aliens have done it, or, vampires have done it. Some conspiracy theories suggest that the expedition fell victim to paranormal forces or curses associated with the Arctic wilderness. These theories often draw upon myths and legends. Love a myth and legend! Love a myth and legend! Fell victim to paranormal forces or curses associated with the Arctic wilderness. Polar bears with little wizard hats? Mayhaps. Personally, I believe it was just an unfortunate event caused by nature and the conditions of the Antarctic. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was cannibalism involved, because if I was stranded, if I was one of the crew members, absolutely I would eat someone else. Only if they were dead first. I wouldn't condone murdering them and then nomming. Just if they were dead, you may as well already, because they're preserved in the cold weather, so they're not going to rot and get all mingany. just it's gonna help everyone else. So I think just eat them. Under them circumstances, it's acceptable. And I don't believe that supernatural forces would have caused them to get stuck, because obviously in the Artic and regions like that, there's just flaws. At this point, my microphone ran out of charge and stopped recording entirely. So sorry about that. It's going to be a little bit janky from now on. To be honest, this whole filming thing was just a disaster from start to finish. So bear with me, and if you've made it this far, God bless you one and all. So as I was saying, in the Arctic, there's just loads of ice floes surrounding the areas which ships can get stuck in. So I don't think the incident was caused by paranormal forces, but I do feel like when your senses are that deprived or overstimulated, I think your mind can play tricks on you, and I wouldn't be surprised if they all went a bit insane and it felt as though paranormal forces were taking over, but really it was just sensory deprivation. For example, in the book Dark Matter, that touches on the subject of a man who is in similar conditions and he's been left by himself to wait out rescue and the resources that he's got, and he starts seeing this spirit and it drives him insane. And also there's a book called A Voyage for Madmen, where this man tries to sail around the world in a tiny boat, and ultimately, because of the environment he's in and lack of communication with others, he goes insane, thinks he's Jesus and jumps overboard. There's other theories about it as well, but he goes insane. So I think that sort of thing can happen in this scenario. The story of Hmserebusandterror serves as a poignant reminder of the perils of exploration and the unforgiving nature of the Arctic. It also highlights the bravery and resilience of those who dared to venture into the unknown in pursuit of discovery. Though their journey ended in tragedy, the legacy of Franklin's expedition lives on, inspiring future generations to explore, learn, and respect the vast, unpredictable wilderness of our world. The quest to navigate the Northwest Passage continued, and subsequent explorers built upon the knowledge gained from Erebus and Terra's journey, thus succeeding in traversing the passage in years following Franklin's disappearance. I would also just like to note that by me doing my makeup while talking about this sort of thing, it's not me trying to make light of the fact that this has taken the lives of real people and that it must have been a horrific experience. It's more just sort of a visual sort of stimulation, and I don't know, I just like watching people do their makeup and talk about things, so I thought I would do it as well. And I'm also aware that Bailey Sarien does this sort of combination of talking about true crime and doing our makeup, and I'm not trying to directly copy without referencing her or be like, oh, I've created this way of doing things. Not at all. I love her videos and I just wanted to do one as well, so I would just like to note that. Thank you for watching, and please recommend anything else in the comments that you would like me to go through, like Captain Scott or Shackleton or anything really. But yes, bye bye.